we'll just call it the HTC One because it's just too many letters. So you can ask me any questions you want about the M8, and I will answer them, honestly. If you have any other questions you guys want to ask, you're welcome to ask those too. Our editor-in-chief, Sean, is doing the moderation, so I'll see the comments and questions pop up right next to me. So say hi to Sean when you ask the questions. He loves people that say hi to him.
Hi, everyone.
There he is. Sean's got his rugged beard. Sean's going for the homeless look.
I'm going to be sticking leaves in it next.
He's got the little satchel over the stick over his shoulder. So I'm just going to answer questions. We're just talking.
Well, here's the first question. It comes from Alex Miller. Let's say I haven't heard anything about the new one. What is the best-selling feature in your opinion?
So I love the way the phone feels. I really, I think HTC's got the best build quality going in the Android world. I think the best compliment that I can give it, and I know this is going to sort of enrage some people, but if you close your eyes, pick this up, and I said, you just picked up the new iPhone 6, you would believe it. I mean, it's up to Apple's level of build quality. I think they've done an absolutely tremendous job with it. But my favorite feature, I think, is right there on the back. The duo cameras are absolutely awesome. And not just a gimmick. They really work well. Even if you never use sort of the after focus stuff, or the unfocus, as they call it, the camera itself is really good. We're still testing it through our reviews. But the really quick shutter speed is nice for capturing a very quick-moving infant. So hopefully that helped answer your question, Mr. Miller.
Well, let's make this very clear. This is not constitute our review. These are simply answers to questions, and there will be a full review coming down the road. So
and just to let everybody know, we've had the device under embargo since Friday, but I just didn't feel it was enough time to do a review. So we'll have a first impressions post and video going up around 5 o'clock Pacific time today, sort of serving as our sort of early impressions, and then next week we'll do a full review for you guys.
And here's our next question from one of our regular podcast participants, and I'm never going to get his name right, so he knows who I'm talking about. Do you think HTC made the right decision by going with the dual cameras for the latest HTC One M8? Why or why not? You've already touched on this a little bit, John, but would you like to expand?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, again, you don't have to ever use it. So they improved on the ultra-pixel camera from the original HTC One, which I thought was very good. We're still doing the tests. Low light in particular is something we're still sort of really working on. But yeah, I think they absolutely made the right decision with it. And I give HTC credit for calling out Samsung, the giant in the room during their keynotes. Well, I know that's not related, but I just had to throw that out there.
I like the comment about dimples. Here's a question from our very own Joey Davidson. Coming from the HTC One Mini, I've been super bummed about the device's battery life. How's the battery on the One M8?
Well, Mr. Yoey Davidson.
I think that's right.
Davidson. Battery life has actually been really good thus far. And I haven't used the power saving mode yet. I'm still going to do that probably later on this week for the review. But I will say in my usage, and this is sort of how I use the phone, and yesterday was probably the best day because sort of the first full work day with it. I took it off the charger around 6:30 in the morning. It's checking 2 email accounts every 5 minutes throughout the entire day. Connected to Wi-Fi mostly at the office and at home. But using it probably more than I would ordinarily because it's new. Playing games, answering phone calls, about an hour and a half of phone calls, social media, downloading apps and such on it. I don't do auto brightness either. I keep my brightness around 75%. By the time I plugged it in last night at around 11 o'clock, it had 46% battery life left. And that's without ever having to use any of the power saving stuff. So it seems to be pretty good so far. I wanted to use it a couple more weekdays to see if that number sort of continues. Yesterday we had a software update that came through in the morning. So see as the days go on, that's improved. Supposedly had battery improvements in there as well.
Okay, this next question comes from someone named Mr. Yadav. Does the lack of Beats audio have any impact on the sound?
The only impact it has is it doesn't have another logo on the back. Boom sound here is way louder and way more clear than the original HTC One. They claim 20% louder. I don't know if it's 20%. I thought the original boom sound sounded great. This one just sounds better. So I don't think that it has any effect at all, other than maybe it's not Dr. Dre endorsed.
Okay, this next question comes from Sumer Chandra. Could you please explain to me the difference between the new Blinkfeed and the old one?
I can't quite answer that one yet because, in all honesty, I turned Blinkfeed off. But I am going to be using that and testing as part of the review. From what I've read, you can set custom feeds for any topic you want. Is really the big difference. What I do like, though, is that you don't have to just hide Blinkfeed. You can actually just turn the Blinkfeed panel off completely, which has been a nice feature, I guess, of it. So probably not the answer you're looking for, but the time we do our full review, I will test the Blinkfeed. That's why I don't think 3 or 4 days is enough time to do a review. There's so many questions to really use. I like to use the phone like I actually use the phone and not just be like, got your test for review. Like actually trying to use it as a real device.
Exactly. This question comes from Dominique Weber, and we've already answered this partially. Hey, John, have you gotten your hands on the DotView case yet, and how long have you had the M8 in the office?
So we've had the M8 since Friday. Todd, who was at the event in New York, has the Dot case, and actually he's going to film a video on it today, so I haven't had a chance to actually use it. It does look really cool, though. I'm not the biggest fan of cases that sort of open up and you got to open up to use, but I do like how it works, so I'm curious to try it. We'll have some coverage on it, and then I'll have used it by the time we do our full review next week, so I'll have some coverage on it in there as well.
Alrighty. Another question from Chandra. Does the M8 feel slippery?
It does actually feel, when I first picked it up, that was actually one of my first thoughts, that it is a little bit slippery on it, but I don't know if I'll just like put like a gross patina on the back of it. The more I use it, the less slippery it feels to me. I might just be getting used to it. My first impression was definitely that it is a little bit on the slippery side.
Or it could just be that gunky tech feel that you're getting on the back of it now.
I got bit by a radioactive spider the other day, and I started getting these little hairs on my finger. So I don't know, maybe that's been helpful.
That could be part of it. That could be. We've got another question here. Is the HTC available in Canada? Yes, they did mention that on stage. I'll just take care of that one for you.
Yeah, the answer, all the carriers, I think it's like TELUS, Bell, and Rogers. So
yeah, I think they announced something like 200 some carriers today. So yeah, there's going to be a really, you're going to be able to get it anywhere you want, basically.
Yep, and Waleed, to ask that question, don't sign a 3-year contract. I hate that Canada makes you do that. Oh. Don't sign a 3-year contract for any phone if you can avoid it.
Yeah, exactly. This next question comes from Gabe Lasky, and is the new Sense 6 as smooth as Sense 5? Your opinions on the looks of the UI?
I don't know if I'm in the minority on this one, but I really like Sense. I actually, if I had a choice, and I had the choice last generation between Sense version of the phone and the Google Play edition, I really like Sense. There's not a giant differences here versus Sense 5 from what I've been able to tell so far. It's sort of little tweaks. I really like they did it with the camera, being able to sort of, and you'll see this in our hands-on video, and I showed it a little bit in our Duo camera overview. You click the settings option, you get this very, very easy to understand menu option, no camera to jump to. So I think they simplify things. I like that HTC took, I think the opposite approach of Samsung with their UI, their skins, whatever you want to call it, or custom operating systems. I think Samsung throws a ton of features at you and hope that there's 1 or 2 that you really like and are going to use. I think HTC spends more time trying to figure out what features they think people are really going to use and not adding things that they consider to be extra. The motion controls are kind of nice. I really do like the tap to unlock kind of thing. Don't call it knock or else you'll get all pissed. But those features have been really nice and welcome. So I'd probably say those are the biggest difference with Sense 6.
And just a bit of housekeeping here, because I see one question getting a lot of votes. If you see another question in the queue that you really are interested in, please give it a plus, and it'll let us know which ones you're really wanting to hear the answers to the most. And with that in mind, Gabe Lasky has another question that's gotten several votes. Do you think the new HTC One does not look as good as the previous version? Is it a little thicker?
I believe it's actually a little thinner. I can get the actual version brought in here. I'll bring it and I'll hold them sort of side by side here. Let me just request that here 1 sec.
Everyone wants to work in an office where you can just type and phones magically are brought to you.
So we'll come back to that question and I'll sort of compare it. But I think it's a little bit thinner. The older HTC One had sort of a plastic ribbon right down the middle. This one is now all metal. The metal sort of wraps around it. And that might account for why it feels a little bit slippery too. 1 sec, I gotta unlock my door.
Yes, it's true, folks, that John just locks his door and keeps us all out at any moment. He'll be right back, and you can see Lucy there in the background.
So here is the older generation HTC One, and here is the new HTC One. Hopefully you can see the difference there. So it looked to be about the same thickness, but the new one has sort of a curved side to it, so it feels a little bit thinner in the hand. So hopefully it'll help answer your question.
Alrighty, next question here comes from Chandra again. Is the new HTC One a worthy upgrade?
Yes. I've seen the leaks too. It looks like it's very evolutionary and a small upgrade. When you use the phone and you hold the phone, you realize it's a much bigger upgrade than you think originally. Yes, it's worth the upgrade.
Okay, so John, what you're saying here is you think it may be worth the upgrade.
Yes, worth the upgrade. And I don't say worth the upgrade very often for a lot of phones, but this one is definitely worth the upgrade.
Here's some good information for you, John, and I'm thrilled to. This is more of a statement. Just to let you guys know, as of December 2013, there are no more 3-year contracts in Canada. We now have 2-year contracts for phones rather than the horrible 3-year.
Well, 2 years is long enough, and it's probably longer than it should be, but thank goodness no more 3 years. Canadians were getting screwed. They were getting screwed with data costs. They were getting screwed with contracts. I'm happy our friends up north now get more sort of realistic.
Totally agree. Totally agree. If this question comes, well, it disappeared on me. This question comes from Asterisk Central. If you could improve one thing about the HTC One M8, what would it be and why?
Good question. I probably would have liked maybe a bit more texture on the back, so it would have felt less slippery. But honestly, oh, no, wireless charging. Give me wireless charging. I don't care if the phone slips out of my hands, but I want wireless charging. It does not have that. Give me wireless charging. Thank you very much.
There you go.
also, I find it really annoying that phones, when you turn them on, make noise. Like, dude, you know, like a whole HTC logo. Samsung's got it. Like, I turn my phone on in the morning when my wife is sleeping, and I have to like wait to walk out of the room to do it. Like, stop doing that.
Well, they don't want you to forget who made it.
It is really annoying. Just cut it out. Stop the madness.
This question comes from Echo X860. Have you encountered the purple tint that afflicted some HTC One phones on either last year or the new HTC One M8?
So this is actually asked on Twitter, too. I don't know if it was the same person, but no, there's no purple hue at all. I didn't experience it on the last generation, but I know people did. The screen looks great on here. I don't think the screen looks as good as some of the Samsung displays, in all honesty. Those sometimes have a little bit of a hue to them, but the screen looks great on the M8.
All right, this next question comes from Tech Snackles. When will the Google Play Edition become available, and will it come to the UK?
I believe it's available right now to be ordered.
I believe it's for pre-order, yeah.
Yeah, it's available to be pre-ordered right now. I would assume it'd come to the UK. I mean, I wouldn't see why it would not come to the UK, but I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. You could always import it, which is probably kind of expensive, or gray market kind of thing.
Exactly. Okay, we have another.
Or just buy a carrier version. Buy the developer version, whatever, and just put on a custom ROM.
Now, here's one question we're getting a lot of votes on, and unfortunately, I don't know if we can answer this yet. This comes from Bradley Richards. How does the new DotView case work? LEDs or using the main display?
So I can't answer that one. Does not use LEDs in the case. The case doesn't have its own battery pack or anything. It actually activates the screen, and the screen lines up the dots with where it knows that the holes in the case are. So it just uses the screen to show all that stuff. And the light just shines through the holes in the screen.
Alrighty, and Chandra is asking all sorts of great questions and getting lots of votes here. Do you think the duo camera configure is actually useful or a gimmick?
We kind of already answered that one. I think it's absolutely very, very, very useful. And if you don't like it, you don't have to use it. It's not like it's forcing a gimmick down your throat. I think it's really useful, and it's kind of a cool feature to have.
Alrighty. This next question comes from Kyrie. Considering the increase in size of the new HTC One, would you expect a viable mini version to be introduced?
Yes, for sure. I'm sure there'll be a mini, there'll be a max, there'll be in-betweeny and a camera-y. But no, I absolutely think that there'll be a new version of it coming soon, and a smaller version. I just launch stuff out of my desk here.
All right. Okay, there's a lot of questions coming in here. This one comes from Pro Gamer Dynamics. Is it an iPhone/Samsung beater?
So first, I just made my screen big so I can see what you guys see here. It looks like Google. It's really like a soft focus on my face. I look like I'm right out of like a 1990s like Showtime After Hours movie with this. So I feel like I need like some romantic music.
That was disturbing.
But yeah, I do think it's an iPhone. I will start with the iPhone first. I think people generally know if you want an iPhone or if you want an Android device. I think most people generally know which one they're going to get. If you're on the fence and you want to go through and look at both devices, I think this one stacks up really, really nicely with the iPhone. I think where there's probably more competition is between the HTC One and the upcoming Galaxy S5. If you walk into a store and they really want an Android device, they've maybe heard about both, and they want to sort of look at them side by side. And I think the new HTC One is going to stack up really, really nicely with the Galaxy S5. Even just picking it up, you could feel the metal as opposed to the plastic. But Samsung's got a huge advertising budget. They got a giant name recognition. They're putting out what I assume is a very nice phone. Of course, I'm holding impressions until I actually get a chance to use it. But I think it can really, really compete for market share, and probably for HTC's sake, more mind share is looking for this generation.
All right, we've got a lot of questions coming in on Twitter. I just happened to look over at my Twitter feed, and they're including me on it, so I can read some of these to you. Quick one here from Frankie Frinkle. Is the front-facing camera better than the back because of the higher megapixels?
So big misconception here. It's ultra pixel on the back, not megapixel. So don't put stock in that number. It's a bunch of pixels stacked on top of each other that make one ultra pixel. The camera on the back is great. It works really well, and I'm still testing it, but the pictures I can see so far look awesome. Camera on the front, though, also looks awesome, and it's wide angle, so you can sort of get you and 5 of your besties in when you take your selfies. So, I mean, they're both very good, but certainly if you want a better quality image, the back camera. This is true of probably most phones. It's higher quality.
And one more question here from Twitter from a Technical. Does the black bar along the bottom of the screen plus the on-screen buttons look or feel like a design flaw?
Let me show you. Let's take a look. We only get the black bar when sort of you're an app, so you can see my son right there. But no black bar right there. If I go into like Chrome, for example, then sort of you do get the black bar. But listen, I've always said I'm not a big fan of on-screen buttons, but I was even less of a fan of the buttons on the old HTC One, where they were capacitive and sort of on the other side, and there's also a black bar. They're not on the screen. I would take the new one over the old one any day. So serve two evils.
Okay, we have one quick question here from Nathan Odong. Does the M8 have NFC? Yes.
Yes, it absolutely does.
I think, honestly, isn't the iPhone about the only flagship phone without NFC now?
Yep.
Oh, Apple. What colors are the U.S. carriers going to get? And that disappeared from me just as I was going to
That's a good one. I don't know. I would assume all 3 colors, but that one I really don't know the answer to. I don't want to just make something up.
This question comes from Lon Win. Is the new HTC One's power button more cumbersome to use than the original one since it's slightly taller, or have you avoided using it with the wake gestures?
So good question. I didn't like the power button on the original HTC One at all. This one, it is a taller device, so you have to sort of lift your finger up to get it, but it's way easier to find and way easier to press. So I prefer it, but I mostly, honestly, to turn the phone on, I mostly just use the wake gestures, and that's just been easier for me now because I don't like the button. I just think it's much easier just to double tap the screen.
Alrighty then. This question comes from Luke Holly. Darn it, move up there. Do you think HTC are ever going to develop a smartwatch now with all the Google Wear announcements?
They said they're working on the smartwatch, so yes.
Yes, definitely. I don't see how they can at this point.
Yeah.
All right. This question comes from Asterisk Central. Let me move it up there for you. What is the average scenario where you'd use the 3D effect on the dual camera?
I don't think I would use the 3D effect on the dual camera. You can watch our camera video. I demonstrated it. That one might be a little bit gimmicky, and they might have done because they could. I don't think I would use it. Maybe as like a background, sort of a parallax effect, but other than that, I don't think I would use it. That's the honest answer.
All right, this question comes from Nathan Odong. Xperia Z2 or HTC One M8, which one feels better in the hand?
I like the Z2. I think it feels really, really nice. And I know I got a lot of flack for this, but I still stand by it. The whole waterproofing aspect of the Z2 makes the screen not look as bright as the screen should. So I would take the M8 and try and not drop it in the toilet.
That's probably a good idea with every phone.
True.
Okay, this question comes from Gabe Lasky. How does the camera stack up to the current awesome phone cameras on the market?
We're going to do a full comparison, comparing the pictures. I haven't used it long enough to feel comfortable answering that. I will say the pictures I've taken on it do look very good.
All righty. This question comes from Bradley Richards. I'm not sure we know the answer to this yet. Can you still use some touchscreen gestures through the DotView Case?
Yes, you can actually. They showed today in the press conference if you want to answer a phone call, you get an arrow that goes down and you sort of swipe your finger down, and you can indeed use touch gestures. There are very few that you can use, but yes, you can without ever having to open the case.
Okay, this question, I know this is going to start a firestorm, but it's the most voted question right now. Would you prefer the HTC One over the iPhone?
Good question. I actually, when I started using the HTC One, I switched from an iPhone 5S. And there are a few things that I miss on iOS. First, I miss iMessage, and I miss gallery syncing in the iCloud. I've sort of gotten around that using Dropbox Sync and then sync that to my computer. So those are sort of my big things that I always miss when I switch away from the iPhone. Saying I prefer it over the other, I don't know if I prefer it or not. I'll do a comparison, certainly, of the two, and sort of you guys can decide. I think they both offer sort of different things, but I don't think I prefer it over the iPhone. But I don't think I prefer the iPhone over this, if sort of that answers your question.
All right, this is another question from Kiryu. Do you think the new HTC One was a big enough jump from the original, and if so, is it a viable option as an upgrade from its predecessor?
Yes, on both of those fronts. I didn't think so until I actually saw the phone and got the phone in her hand. It's a big update from the predecessor. It's not just sort of as evolutionary as it was looked in the leaks. So yeah, I do think it's a big jump, and I do think it's a nice upgrade from the original. Although I think the original is a great phone. So if you're happy with it, maybe you want to wait a year. I don't think you'll be disappointed waiting a year. But if you're itching for a new phone, I think jump in with both feet and you'll be very happy.
All right. Here's another question from Echo X86. HTC has brought back the micro SD card slot after leaving it out of the Droid DNA and HTC One. Is expandable storage still a necessity with all the cloud options available?
I think so. It only comes with 16 and 32 gig configurations. So I think it's nice to have and support to some people. So I think HTC took a lot of, and I thought HTC's PR, they took a lot of flack for not having the SD card. I think they were really sick of hearing it. So I think if you want to use it, you've got the option. If you don't, then rely on the cloud. They did something weird, though, we talked about this in the first impressions video coming later on today. When you put my nano SIM into an iPhone or really any other phone that uses nano SIM, it's got a little tray. They have to put it in, you put the tray into the phone. It's got the same tray for the micro SD card, which was just weird. I thought I had like a dual SIM phone for a minute before I figured out that was for the SD card.
That is an odd design choice.
Yeah, it was very strange.
This question comes from Luke Haley. How are the front-facing speakers?
Loud. Very, 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 very loud. I kind of wish that maybe there was like a stand in the back so I could sort of put it down on the table and have it face at me. But it makes sense to have speakers facing at you when instead of having them sort of shooting out one way or on the back being muffled by the table or couch that you're on.
Another question from Luke Haley. He's asking a lot of great questions. How's the phone compared to the Nexus 5? Display, smoothness in the UI, etc.
I like it more than Nexus 5. I think it feels better, but I can see why people might like sort of that rubber back of the Nexus 5. I prefer I like it, but I haven't really used it long enough, and I want to make sure I compare it. That's what we do sort of differently. I don't want to just be like, I like this one more, and I only used it for 3.5 days. So I'm not quite sure how to answer that one yet, but we will do comparisons versus the Nexus 5.
All right, this question's a little bit more businessy, but I think it's worthy of taking a look at here. Even after having a superior phone compared to all others last year, HTC still had a bad quarter last quarter. Do you think it will change with the HTC One M8?
And so phone sales don't just make a business model. I don't know what their marketing costs are. I don't know what their cost of goods sold is. I don't know what their salary is. So just because they had a bad quarter doesn't mean the phone didn't do very well. I would assume that they're going to sell a lot of them, considering they're launching on like every carrier in the world. But phone sales don't always equal a net positive quarter. So I can't answer that question.
Yeah, there's so many factors to take into consideration.
Yeah.
This is actually a question that was a big question around the office. What is the name? This comes from Peter Blanco. What is the name consumers will call this phone? The HTC One, like last year, the One M8, the M8. I think this is going to be confusing for the average consumer.
Super confusing. I think they're going to call it the HTC One. That's pretty much what I'm calling it. I don't know why they decided to go HTC One M8. That's just, if you want to have a number to show it's different than the M7, then just call it the M8. I think it's very confusing, in all honesty.
I actually kind of wonder if they weren't trying to go for a feel of the HTC One Mate.
They would have said that then.
I know, but they didn't. So, but it sounds so much like Mate. I kind of wondered.
Yeah.
But they didn't say it, so.
Yeah.
Okay, folks. Some of this stuff we've already covered a little bit earlier, such as the battery life is great. Let's see here. This question comes from Udhas Koya. Can you shoot slow motion in the new HTC?
Yes.
Alrighty then, that was easy enough. From Gabe Lasky, why did HTC choose not to use a 2K or 4K display on their newest flagship?
Battery. That's my bet. Battery, a billion times battery. Technology's gotten crazy good. Battery technology has not changed.
Yeah, unfortunately. I'm not finding it right this second, but I did see a question. Have you seen how fast it charges yet?
It's got a quick charge. It's got quick charge in it. I haven't tested the quick charge. Honestly, I plug it in at night and then I turn it off and go to sleep. So I'll test that as part of the review.
Alrighty then. Folks, we're going to be wrapping up here, so we probably only have time for about 2 more questions. I'm quickly going through these to see what else is in here. This question comes from Sharish Yadav. Any new improvements on the native music player?
And this, again, all these questions, you can see why 3 days is not enough time to do a full review on it. I have not tried Music Player yet, but I will only do the full review next week.
Yes, and that's exactly why we do take longer to review them.
Yeah.
We want to look at every corner of the phone before we write anything
Yeah.
up.
I mean, look at all these like really like sort of minutia type questions. I mean, there's so much into it. You just can't know a phone that well in just a few days.
All right, folks, this is going to be the last question of the day, and this question comes from Raj Karma. Do you think it's better looking than HTC One, which was already a very beautiful phone?
Yeah, that's a good question. The HTC One, the original one, was a really nice looking phone, and still is a good looking phone, and still holds up. I think from a design standpoint, it's probably evolutionary design. I think it's as good looking as the other one. You get different color options. And I think the backs kind of look very similar. So it's a subjective question, but I do like the way the new one looks. Let's take one more question. I feel the need for one more. We got 1 minute left, so let's do it.
All right, if he's feeling all frisky here. This question comes from Billy Jacob Kanda. Do you think it was a mistake not to include 3 gigabytes of RAM in the M8?
I mean, just to say, wow, we've got 3 gigs like the Note 3. When it comes to performance, I mean, people get really caught up on the specs. Like, I need 3 gigs and 2.8 octa. It's not going to matter. 2 gigs is plenty to do what you need to do. And if you know what you need to do as a power user, I think you'll be fine. I think that's why Samsung put 2 gigs in the S5. It's also the cost. You can't add all these things. You can't add a 2K or 4K display and 3 gigs of RAM and expect the cost to be $199. I mean, it's just not realistic.
Yeah, exactly. All right, folks, that is going to bring us to the end of the show. And we do thank you all for joining us. Do make sure to join us tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 Eastern for the Techno Buffalo show. And John, thank you for taking the time today to answer all these questions.
Thank you, Sean P. Ani, for taking the time to moderate these questions. And thank you to the audience who came to watch. If you're not sick of hearing my voice already, thank you guys for stopping by and saying hello.
All right, that'll do it for today. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.